Hustle TV, producer series.
Hey everybody, it's Contribe here. Today I'm gonna be doing a walkthrough of my track Gravity High, coming out on House of Hustle. Hope you guys like the track and I hope you guys find this tutorial useful. So I'm gonna start out by playing the track so you can hear it in case you haven't heard it.
Can you feel the pressure fall? Come and gone, feeling like you can do it all. On a wave, gonna ride it all day long. Gravity high, gravity high. Breathe it in, can you feel the pressure fall? Come and gone, feeling like you can do it all. On a wave, gonna ride it all day long. Gravity high, gravity high. Come and gone, feeling like you can do it all. On a wave, gonna ride it all day long. Gravity high, gravity high.
Okay, that's the track. I hope you guys like it. So I'm gonna start going through each of the elements, talking about the mixing, why I chose certain sounds and all that. My main idea with this track, I wanted to make a pretty simple track without not too many elements. So if you can see, you know, there's not a lot of many things going on in this track. There's just one main vocal, a couple of synths, and then it's just mostly drums. So let me just play what the kick and the bass sound by themselves. So it's a pretty simple beat. This is probably what I spent the most on for this track. I was just making sure that the kick and the bass were sounding good by themselves, and then I started building on top of that. When it comes to processing, I also kept it pretty simple with the track. As I said, I wanted for the track to be pretty simple itself, so I stick with pretty simple processing. Really not much going on either with the kick or with the bass. This is just a sample from Splice, the kick. And then for the bass, I'm basically using an 808 tom sample. It's just any tom, and then I tuned it, make sure I was in the right key of this track, and then I was playing around with different rhythms, different notes, and things. I think I might have used a note generator in this step to try to come up with a cool pattern, and then when something kind of that I liked came up, I probably recorded that, and then I moved it into MIDI, and I started just playing around until I got it right. And then, because for the most part the kick is pretty short, and then the bass never really plays when the kick is there, this really wasn't really hard to get both of them sounding together nicely. It's more about having the levels right. As you can see, really there's really no processing, no saturation or anything. The sample by itself is already warm. It already has a little bit of saturation, so all I did was cut up a little bit of the top, and then kickstart basically as a safety measure, just in case the kick and the ever comes into contact with the bass, which never really happens. So it's pretty simple processing those two. So once I had a rhythm that I liked going between those two, I started adding some drums. Once again, pretty simple elements, some claps. Then started adding some hats and stuff. And then after that is just adding a few things here and there just to keep the track interesting, such as some open hats, and then some rim shops, some other things. And then this is what it kind of sounds like, the drums with the kick and the bass. So it's pretty simple, but I think it works really well. Everything's bouncing with each other, trying to accentuate some of the bass hits with some of the drums, trying to make sure everything's kind of in the same groove. And then yeah, I have this one hat which kind of, for me, it's kind of like the main element in this track, just because it's not the typical open hat that's always on the offbeat, which would sound like this. Which it works, but it's just, you know, every time you hear a house track, it's like that. So I think this was a loop that originally had that that rhythm like that, but I just got rid of everything else that I didn't like, and then just kept that main open hat. And then I really liked how it's kind of like not really in the place it's supposed to be. So it's something simple, but it's just something that's, you know, really different, really makes the track stand out compared to other things. So that's pretty much for all the drums. It's pretty simple. And then throughout the track, I'm basically just adding a few more elements here and there just to keep the energy going. So for the last drop, I add some more rides on top just to add a little bit of higher energy in some of those higher frequencies. Pretty simple stuff. And then something I like doing is using, instead of using just like a normal snare roll, which is what you hear 99% of the time in builds, I like using something different. For example, here I have a breakbeat, and then I'm just opening up a filter, going up into the drop, and then playing with it a little bit, adding some variation, some hits, and then I'm also playing with the transient here. So if you don't know, in Ableton, Normally you have these arrows, which basically is the algorithm that Ableton's gonna use to warp the sound. So if you select this one here, the arrow to the wall, basically it'll act like a transient gate wherever you have one of these little markers. And then what I'm doing is at the beginning it's pretty low, just so you can only hear the transient, and then as we're getting closer to the end, I open it up here so more of the other sound comes through, and then it kind of sounds like it's getting bigger and bigger throughout the build up. And yeah, I really like that. When it comes to just processing everything together, pretty simple. I'm mostly clipping some of the top out of some of these groups just to make sure I have enough headroom at the end for the mix. And yeah, this one was not too much processing, as I was saying. I have Soothe too. Just make sure I'm getting rid of some of those unwanted frequencies. Then glue compressor, and then some. I love using the capitator for drums. I usually use this drum fattener preset, and it really gets the drums sounding how I want them. It's a pretty extreme preset, so I always have to either turn it down a little or just make sure you play with the levels, because if you just throw this on, it'll be way too loud, and the drums will probably be distorted and all, and I didn't really want them to be super distorted for this track. So yeah, not too many elements, as I was saying, but enough to keep the track interesting, and enough to be the base of the track, and you know what's gonna get people dancing and all that. So then when I was coming up for ideas for some of the sounds, I really wanted to play with pitch bending and things like that. So I started adding just, you know, some musical elements. Once again, something simple. For example, I have a bongo here. Let me play it by itself. And it's just kind of giving it that like trippy pitch bending vibe that I really wanted to be like the background of the track. So if I remove some of the plugins, it's just like a whatever, it's just a bongo hit, but I'm using Corpus and then some delays and panning just to really make it kind of trippy and moving around. And basically what all this is doing is just with the Corpus and then the LFO, and then I'm moving it around throughout the track just so that it's not the same hit every single time, and then just automating, playing with it. Try to keep the song interesting. And then I think after I did that, I kind of wanted to keep going with that like pitch bending vibe. So I wrote this just very simple chords in Diva, and then once again, you know, just playing with frequency shifting, a tremolator, which is cutting the audio, just making these, you know, pretty simple chords. Just trying to turn them into something a little like trippier. So this is what they sound like without anything. It's just a normal chord, you know, typical like house, like 7th chord. With some delays and some reverb that is coming in already from Diva. It's just a preset. It really did nothing there. But then once I add everything else, it really makes them what they are. And then once again, it's just playing with the automation, just different. Sometimes it's not as trippy, and then sometimes the effects are louder and more clear. For example, in this one, I'm automating the depth of the tremolator so that as the audio comes through, and then it starts getting choppy towards the end. And once again, just playing with a frequency shifter just so the audio goes up and down, and things like that. And also playing with the filter. just to keep it interesting throughout the track. So it's sometimes it's really like in your face, sometimes it's a little more behind in the mix. Some pretty simple tricks and things just to keep the mix changing and evolving throughout the track. I really like those chords. I thought those were like the main element now, and I basically just recorded them and did some press them into audio, and then did some playing with it a little bit more. So coming up with some risers and some other effects. It is basically just the same chords, but I just recorded them. And then did like some little risers with them and stuff. Pretty simple stuff. I also have this riser, pretty simple, just I think it's just a sine wave on operator, and then I'm playing with the LFO. I really like this sound because it has, as you can see, there's like no high end, but it really fills out those low mids, which normally in breakdowns or right before the drop, sometimes there's way too little sound in that range. So this really just fills it up really nicely when the bass is not going on fully. And then finally for the synths, I just played with a 303 VST. I think this one is the one from Roland. Just a little, just recorded a few audio from that, and then played around with the actual audio instead of playing around with the VST too much. I just pressed it into audio just so it'd be easier to control and everything like that. But once again, I was just automating delays, reverbs, pitch, the same thing, the same processing that I was doing for all the other sounds. I wanted to be in the same style, something simple, but it's kind of trippy, kind of evolving, and that's why I ended up choosing this 303 sound, which it's not really not being used in the traditional sense. Let me play it in the context. And as you can hear, every time it hits is really being something different. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought it went really well with all the other elements of the track. So basically the process for this track was I had all of this ready, the kick, the bass, with the drums and those synth sounds. I knew it needed some vocals just because it was kind of a more minimal track. I really wanted to get somebody to sing on it. So I actually reached out to somebody through Fiverr. I sent them the track, and then I asked them to come up with their own idea for it, and they ended up sending me this really nice vocal, which already sounded amazing by itself. So basically all I did was go through it and then make it fit into the track really well, and then continue using the same type of ideas that I was doing for my synths and some of the drums, and basically use that same processing for the vocal, and also make it a little bit more trippy and make it fit that theme of the track. So let me just play the vocals, what they sound like by themselves.
Breathe it in, can you feel the pressure fall? Come and gone, feeling like you can do it all. On a wave, gonna ride it all day long. Gravity high, gravity high. Breathe.
So it's pretty simple. They already sounded pretty good. I just did some compression. Little alter boy, it's really not doing anything here. I have it in here just in case I wanted to automate some of the formats every once in a while, just to keep things interesting and for build-ups and things like that. But really not much when it comes to processing there. I think the key for this was basically the layering, and luckily the singer recorded some ad-libs on top of the main vocal.
Breathe it in, can you feel the pressure fall?
So then basically it was just, layering everything correctly, making sure it was sounding really nicely, panning some of the ad libs just to fill out the space, adding some nice effects, some echoes and delays and things like that, and then just making sure that none of the vocals were kind of stacking up on top of each other harshly. So just some cutting out and some making some space for the main vocal to cut through, even through the ad libs. And then yeah, same process here. I basically wanted to have the main vocal just go throughout in the breakdowns, and then just have some more rhythmic elements coming from the vocals in the drops, and that's where some of these edits of the vocal come from. They're basically chopping around and finding parts that sound interesting by themselves. So let me just play what some of those sound like.
On a wave, gonna ride, 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 ride.
So as you can hear,
Ride.
I'm basically doing the same effects that I'm using on the chords, but I'm using it on the vocals. Filtering, little alter boy just for the formant shifting and all those things. So basically just trying to follow that general idea. And then it was just a lot of experimenting until I found things that I like, and all of the part in red is basically all from that same vocal, and then came up with some little more rhythmic elements like this, or this one. As I said, just to keep things interesting throughout, but the main thing was highlighting that really nice vocal and trying to make it all the song kind of just comes together now, because the vocal is going in throughout the track. It's not always just playing out the full vocal, but there's usually something else going on, either a riser or something else that it's just all made from that same sample. Like this riser, that's just a really long reverb recorded from the main vocal and then just processed that way, just so it's like a little effect coming in from the vocal. Can go a little bit through the effects, so you can see there's really not much going on in the effects section. There's just some noise, crash, and some atmospheric sounds, just to keep fill up a little bit of the space and help with some of the transitions and things like that. But it's really simple. There's really not much going on there. I really wanted all the background effects and all the sounds and all the little things that you can hear to be coming directly from all of the sounds that are already in the track. Once again, going back to the idea of it being super minimal. So most of the effects and everything that you can hear coming through, it's basically just the processing on the track or on the individual parts. So there's really no need to add a bunch of little things to keep the track interesting, because the main elements, I just messed around with those main elements so much that it sounds like it's a lot of different things. I'm trying to see what else, if I'm missing anything else from the track, but yeah, that's pretty much it. When it comes to my template, this is how I used to do it. I've changed it a little bit, but I basically have group these. So I have the kicks, bass, drums, synths, vocals, effects are my groups, and then they go through returns. So basically the kick and the bass are going into this group. It's the same thing as if they're grouped, just so I can process kick and bass together, and then I process everything else. So I just name it all high. So everything that's not kick and bass gets processed together. And this basically just helps me with my mixing process and all that. This way I'm able to compress the kick and the bass a little bit, just so they fit in and are glued a little bit more. And then normally I saturate either the kick or the bass in by themselves. In this case, I think I just ended up adding a little bit of saturation for them together, once again to help glue those two sounds together. And then for the rest of the highs, I usually like having a little bit of OTT just on those, and some compression, not much. just bring all the sounds together, make sure there's no, you know, lows that are gonna be competing with the kick and the bass. I really enjoy using the track spacer, this plugin, and then I basically have all of my highs sidechained to the kick and the bass, but only below certain frequencies. So whenever the kick or the bass are playing, basically the rest of the track is affected. It's very little. Right now I have it at 6%, so it's pretty much impossible to hear that it's getting ducked because it's so little, but it definitely does help for the kick and bass to make sure that they're always coming through, because that you know, that's definitely the main part of the track. So yeah, that's my track, Gravity High. I hope you guys like it, and then definitely make sure to check out the remix by 96 Vibe, which is an amazing remix. So definitely check both tracks out, and reach out to me at Contribe Music on any social platform if you have any questions, if you want me to tell you anything else. And thanks to House of Hustle for having me on.